With 3 and potentially 4 refreshed Tesla Model Y variants, you shouldn't overpay for your practical needs and wants, right? You may personally be struck between buying the new petrol-like range-busting new Tesla Model Y rear-wheel drive or the long-range all-wheel drive variant. Heck, even the Model Y Performance. Or is the base rear-wheel drive variant the most ideal fit for you? Which raises the rightful question of what each step up in price gets you, and ultimately, is it going to be worth it? Now, some of you may recall that I had previously produced some of the most useful and relatable Tesla Model 3 and Tesla Model Y comparisons on YouTube, as highlighted by some of you before. So whilst I am partially biased on that claim, I do generally believe that my Tesla trim comparisons are like no other video on the internet. And that's because I try and tackle the question from a different angle. I try to stay away from the boring spec sheets and bring the comparison to life by helping to identify how each trim is going to be useful for your own unique circumstances in practical terms. Therefore, this video is produced so you know exactly what those differences are, what type of buyer that it suits and why, and perhaps the most interesting point, helping you decide if that jump in price is going to be money well spent for your circumstances. So whether you're new to Tesla EVs or you're already a Tesla owner looking to upgrade to the new refreshed Tesla Model Y, this video should help you address which one of these 2026 Tesla Model Ys you should buy and why. Hopefully I've set the scene for the remainder of the video, but before I do kickstart the video, I appreciate if you could just drop the video a cheeky like, subscribe if you haven't already. Right, let's get straight into it. Well folks, I hope you're hungry because I'm going to start with the main course. Potentially the biggest and most important difference that you will see between the different trims is the range and the max charging speed differences. The base rear-wheel drive Tesla Model Y now has a healthy 311 miles WLTP as standard, and the long-range all-wheel drive gets the second highest range with 364 miles WLTP, making the long-range rear-wheel drive the most suited for those where every mile counts at 387 miles. Now, if you're thinking, Adam, I thought you said we're not just comparing the specs, and if you are saying that, well, you're not wrong. I did actually say that. But here's the Adam difference. Practically speaking, would you pick one trim over the other on vehicle range alone, and why? There's quite a few differences why you may actually pick one trim over the other, and we'll definitely get into each and every one in just a second, but I can't stress enough that the lion's share of this decision is going to be focused on range. And if I'm being brutally honest, most consumers will actually be suited to the range of the Model Y rear-wheel drive. At 311 miles, as a baseline, this trumps the average US daily commuter of driving just over 30 miles a day. Heck, you'd even get that back in around an hour's worth of charging from home, and yes, back at 100%. Yes, literally in about an hour. So day to day, 311 miles is quite the allocation of mileage to get through before you need to charge again. So you could actually go days without plugging in, really. Even if you are doing long distance driving, if you have charging at your end destination, you may not even need to supercharge. 311 miles is the equivalent of driving, 5 hours straight, doing an average of 60 miles per hour. So the base rear-wheel drive on range is effectively a solid baseline. And I'll get on to the supercharging speeds in just a second because there is a difference that you do need to know about, but there's also a sneaky silver lining in the weakness of that trim. But before I touch on that, if range is going to be non-negotiable, it has to be the long-range rear-wheel drive without a doubt. With an extra 76 miles that could make the difference, the all-wheel drive long range is going to be a solid middle ground. But if you want range and traction, particularly for those that, may face difficulty in wintry conditions, the all-wheel drive long range then actually comes into play. And to be honest, trading 23 miles for better traction isn't such a huge trade-off in my eyes if traction in wintering conditions is more of a must in your local area. Therefore, there's literally no point in buying a trim for extra range if you're never going to do the range or test the limits very rarely. That is exactly my case, and is frankly more relatable to actually most of you. Critically speaking, what I think is more of an issue, or almost as equally as important as range in this decision-making process, is charging speed. Now, I personally test the range limits of my Tesla Model Y rear-wheel drive less times than I have fingers, and to clarify before you comment on it, yes, I do have 8 fingers and 2 thumbs. You're not going to catch me out there, folks. So for me, on range alone, spending circa £4,000 extra on the long range rear-wheel drive would have very little benefit to me on range alone, as I think it is more than reasonable to spend an extra 5 minutes charging for the difference that I need to actually get to my destination. In my practical mind, worst case scenario, that 5 minutes extra over 10 times a year is what, 50 extra minutes charging across the whole year? That for me isn't worth 4,000. Even if it was double that at maybe what, 1 hour 40 minutes across the year, I'd personally rather save that money. That's just personal preference though. The major advantage of the rear wheel drive long range though, and the long range all wheel drive, to be honest, is the difference in charging speed. You go from a peak speed of 170 kilowatts in the rear wheel drive to 250 kilowatts in the other trims. Therefore, if you do need to do a longer charging stop for whatever reason, the quicker charging speeds combined with the greater range on a bigger road trip will ultimately mean that you could save yourself extra charging stops, but more importantly, each charging stop will equally then be quicker, for which, if you have kids, this will be a lifesaver, especially for those with impatient kids too, and those parents out there will know if any of their kids do match that criteria. The sneaky silver lining that I mentioned earlier was that whilst the rear-wheel drive Model Y does have lower peak charging speed of 170 kilowatts, it has an immensely unique battery compared to the other models that make it super practical, but also more of a workhorse than the other models to some degree. And I'll try to skip the nerdy part of it, but the rear-wheel drive has a LFP battery chemistry compared to the batteries found in the long-range variants. The LFP battery can be charged to 100% for 100% practical range effectively. And that is incredibly resilient for a battery when it comes to degradation. And I mean, in my legacy rear-wheel drive Tesla Model Y, this has the same battery type, and I haven't lost a single mile of range from the computer in what, 9 months that I've had it? So for the long range variants, Tesla will want you to charge between 80 and 90% for just daily guidance, and only to 100% if you're about to then do a long trip. So the rear wheel drive Tesla Model Y, whilst it does lack in charging speed, it does have this advantageous battery perk over the long range variants. But the other variants, they may make gains in acceleration and other hardware differences that may then ultimately matter to you. So let's take a look into that. If you have a need for speed, but without a performance variant that targets out and out speed, the all-wheel drive long range has a 0 to 60 of 4.6 seconds, and that can decrease the 0 to 60 with the over-the-air acceleration boost update to actually 4.1 seconds. This is an optional extra and is not available on the other two variants, so they're going to get 0 to 60 times of 5.6 seconds and 5.4 respectively. Hardly a blip in between the other two. But the extra motor and the traction is likely to be a key driver of upgrading to that all-wheel drive long range. Plus the other hardware advantages such as premium Tesla audio, adding 6 extra speakers and subwoofers compared to the immersive audio like of the long range rear-wheel drive and the rear-wheel drive Tesla Model Y variants. So if you are an audiophile and sound really matters, there is no other option other than the all-wheel drive long range that will tick that box for you. The immersive audio is not going to be bad by any means, but the lack of subwoofer will mean that it will sadly lack that depth in audio experience. And with the improvements made to isolating road noise, having better audio will go further than ever before in the Tesla Model Y. You will also gain extra premium materials around door trims, such as the chrome speaker grills, the Alcantara-like door fabric, though this can be partially offset in a rear-wheel drive variant if you opt for the optional white trim, but you still aren't getting that chrome speaker grille. It's going to be a minor quirk, but one you'd like to be in the know of before you buy. Similar to how the 20-inch wheel option is also a long-range rear-wheel drive and all-wheel drive exclusive. That means you can't upgrade your wheels at purchase with the rear-wheel drive base variant, sadly, and that will have to be an aftermarket decision, I guess. It's also the same with the warranty offerings too. Where I'm based, all the 2026 Tesla Model Ys come with 4 years or 60,000 miles general warranty, whichever comes first, but the difference is going to be on the battery warranty motor in the rear-wheel drive base model. That's going to be 8 years or 100,000 miles, whichever comes first, but the long-range variants get 120,000 miles rather than 100,000 of the base rear-wheel drive. So again, that extra warranty coverage could well be worth it, especially if you are leaning on the mileage more than the everyday driver. Otherwise, everything else should be pretty much uniform across the trims. The FSD hardware, the interior screen sizes, the heated and cooled seats, etc. It's all standard across the Model Y range, which leads to the all-important point for you: which one is going to be suited to who and why. So to conclude, which Tesla Model Y is better for you? The 2026 Tesla Model Y rear-wheel drive, the Model Y long-range rear-wheel drive, or the Model Y long-range all-wheel drive? Well, I can't make that decision for you, but hopefully you can point and now decipher the previous points that are most important to you, or even do it in the other way around. So discount the spec differences that aren't that important to you in order to determine what model is more suited to you. Generally speaking though, value for money, the rear-wheel drive is absolutely right on the money, and I think it will be by far the most popular variant as a solid all-rounder. The long-range rear-wheel drive will be a business customer's car of choice, just with that max range option and better charging speeds than the rear-wheel drive Model Y, with the all-wheel drive long range just being the best version of the Tesla Model Y available at present, but that's also going to come with a price tag that matches that extra gained. There was also talk of a 7-seater version of the long-range all-wheel drive being available. However, that may follow in the coming months, as might a performance Tesla Model Y. And if so, the target market for these two are pretty obvious, to say the least. But overall, I really like the base Model Y, as it's such a good spec as standard. And you could get yourself some optional paint upgrades and maybe a few decent accessories too. And if you want some accessories that I got for my Tesla Model Y from one of the leading third-party accessory providers for Teslas, take a look at the links in the video description. I also have a cheeky discount code there too, if you do take a look. So did today's video help you at all? What are you leaning to, and what is the best refreshed Tesla Model Y trim right now? Is it worth upgrading to the long-range rear-wheel drive or even the all-wheel drive long-range? Let me know in the comment section below. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe if you haven't already, and do share the video with any of your friends or family that may find the video beneficial. If you haven't done so already, do take a look in the video description as I mentioned before. You folks have been great, and I'll see you in the next one. Ciao.